Hello and hello. Welcome back to the Undisputed Champ YouTube boxing channel. If you like the videos I've already put out, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and please share the videos. Video for today, we're talking about a fight that's been announced, but I like to say it's still pending. And that is the Saul Canelo Alvarez fight versus Billy Joe Saunders. I say the fight's still pending because Canelo actually has a fight coming up very shortly, and he has to win that fight in order for the Billy Joe Saunders fight to be confirmed. That fight that Canelo has coming up is the Avni Yildirim fight, and I'll talk about that first. What I kind of remember about Avni Yildirim, the most memorable thing anyway, is when he fought in the World Boxing Super Series tournament. And I know I've said it in previous videos, but that is the best format for boxing, in my opinion, going forward. I think if boxing can adopt that on a major scale and keep putting out these tournaments, I think that's what's going to save boxing, because it gets all the best fighters fighting each other in a short space of a short time frame, barring no injuries, and it has all the belts, so you know who the number one is in the division is once they come out the tournament. We've had great fights such as Nonito Donaire versus Inoue, Alexander Usyk versus Bradis. We've had Josh Taylor versus Prograis. All great fights, all fight of the year contender fights. And if it wasn't for this tournament style and this tournament setup, with the money being guaranteed and fighters knowing that if they win, they can become world champions because belts are in the tournament, we wouldn't have had such fights. Like those fights would have been spread across however many years, but because of the tournament style, it was squeezed into about 18 months. So yeah, World Boxing Super Series, big up to you. I'm going to keep supporting. Whenever you guys are on, I'll always make sure that I'm paying attention and I'm locking in. But back to Avni Yildirim. So he was in a tournament when it was the super middleweights, and he fought Chris Eubank Jr. And you know what? Even though his manager was a bit egotistical and a bit of a maniac, he did really well in promoting his fight. Like Avni came across sort of like a quiet Turkish lad. Didn't really say too much for himself. I don't think he could speak English, but his manager promoted the hell out of that fight. Had me like really intrigued for the fight because we didn't know much about Avni. We just knew he was undefeated at the time, and we knew a lot about Chris Eubank Jr., but there were still questions because he had that loss to Billy Joe Saunders, still hadn't won a legit world title, and it was an interesting matchup. And unfortunately for Avni, he went in there, Chris Eubank stole his soul and took his chin off. But it was an interesting build-up. After that, Avni had a couple more fights. Somehow his manager wrangled him another title shot against one of the Durrell brothers. Came out on the losing end of that, and he's now managed to get another title shot against Canelo. So whoever his manager is, props to him, because he's been getting his guy title shots. But Yildirim's never really shown me anything special. He looks like a very limited fighter, come forward guy, not great head movement. There's a little bit of pop, but not amazing power, not one punch knockout power, and doesn't really move well at the waist. To be honest, he's not a great fighter. He's not a great fighter. And then obviously we have Canelo. Canelo has the second best resume in boxing out of active boxers, only second to Manny Pacquiao, who hasn't fought in 2 years. So is he still active? Begs questions are out there. But Canelo is an amazing fighter. He's stacked up great wins. Some question marks on some of the wins, but he's fought those people, which is what helps him to get by some of the question marks, because certain people have tried to avoid fights. Certain people have tried to not take on certain challenges, but Canelo has put himself at the front of the queue. A name comes out, he puts his hand up, he's ready to go, he's ready to fight. And one thing I'll give Canelo, he's always in shape. And that's what you want from a consummate professional. He's always in shape. He's never blowing up between fights. He's never having weight problems. He's always in shape. And like people like that, I have to give their props to them. I have to give them their props. As I said, some question marks over a couple of the wins. And then a lot of people, for some reason, there are a few people on this YouTube thing especially who do talk about it, but a lot of people on here seem to forget that Canelo did get popped. I know there was something about it getting reversed or trace amounts, etc., but What I can say is allegedly he failed a drugs test. Well, not even allegedly, he did fail a drugs test. Whether it was reversed or not is the question, but he failed a drugs test. And not many people seem to bring that up. We don't know if that had been in his system for a long time. We don't know what the effects of it were. But anyway, I just thought it's fair to say that because a lot of people seem to brush by that. And it is a relevant point when it comes to boxers. If are they getting an unfair advantage? Is he being treated differently because he's a mega star? You gotta ask these questions. It's up to individual people to make their own judgment on that, but you have to ask these questions. Moving away from the Canelo Yildirim fight, because I see Canelo winning by stoppage. Probably say mid rounds. I'll be very, very surprised if Yildirim takes him the full 12, but it's a Canelo win. Either way, I can't. There's no way I can see Yildirim winning the fight. If Yildirim wins this fight, it's one of the biggest shocks of all time in boxing. It's on the level of Tyson, Buster Douglas type shocks, like or Tyson Holyfield shocks. If Yildirim wins this fight, you know what? If you're a gambler, it might actually it's not going to be worth it because I can't see any way Yildirim wins. But if you love the gamble, you can chuck a couple of pound coins on Yildirim, and if he wins, the return's going to be healthy. But yeah, on to Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders. I want to get excited about the fight, but the only thing that stops me from getting excited is the way Canelo's been dealing with these British fighters. We can go all the way back to Matthew Hatton, crushed him, had Ricky Hatton crying, saying that Matthew shouldn't have taken the fight, saying that Matthew shouldn't take the fight, and Canelo crushed him. Then you move forward, Amir Khan, Canelo crushed Amir Khan. We all knew Khan's chin was weak, but Canelo completely and utterly confirmed that it's finished, finito, chin's out, done out here. Then Canelo, Liam Smith, again, Canelo putting in work, smashing, knocking out, stopping another British fighter. Then Canelo, Callum Smith, and it's just like, Callum, he went to 12, but out of all of the British fighters I mentioned before, Callum put in the worst performance. And because Callum decided, I don't want to get knocked out, fair enough, but I know I'm not going to win and I'm not going to try to win anymore. And I was bitterly disappointed in that performance from Callum. Even though he didn't get stopped, worst performance out of all the British guys Canelo's fought. So as you've heard, like Canelo's just been running through British guys, and that's why I can't get excited because I don't trust Billy Joe Saunders to come in good enough shape and put in a good enough performance to actually worry Canelo. Billy Joe's always having issues staying focused and committed to boxing. When Billy Joe's on song, he's great, and we've seen him put on great performances. Like he has a good deep amateur record. He went to the Olympics. Fortunately, he didn't manage to go far, but he made it to the Olympics, and he's managed to keep an undefeated record. He's gone through the domestic scene very smoothly. The majority of this is at middleweight. He beat Chris Eubank Jr. in a British dust-up. Very tight fight, but he came away with the win. And he's shown that he has something. He has something. He was a middleweight champion for a while. He beat Andy Lee. Andy Lee had a great left hook, and he managed to stop Andy. No, he didn't stop Andy Lee, but he managed to beat Andy Lee. And he's done a few things. His best performance came against David Lemieux. David Lemieux is a come-forward fighter, very crude, and as good a performance as it was, because he made David Lemieux look silly in there and boxed a masterclass. David Lemieux is very limited, and I think that Billy Joe Saunders' performance was kind of blown a bit out of proportion because what David Lemieux gone and done? Nothing. We know he's got a good hook, but it's so telegraphed, and if you can stay out of the way of that hook, you're going to beat David Lemieux. GGG beat David Lemieux off a jab alone. So, yes, Billy Joe looked great in the fight, but David Lemieux's he's not a great fighter. And yeah, I not put my formal pick in, but what I can say is I'm not excited for the fight. And the way Canelo has been looking, especially at super middleweight, where he's been dealing with these guys, I'm at the moment edging strongly towards Canelo. Hopefully when build up of the fight starts to ramp up, etc., etc., I can get a bit more excited for the fight. But right now, what I'm envisaging is Canelo running for another British fighter, and that British fighter not putting up much of a fight. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. More videos to come, guys. We're going to keep working on this channel. We're going to keep building, going to keep growing, and hopefully you guys continue to support. Safe.